Busting bombs into the depths of Iran's most robust nuclear sites was not completed in a vacuum. The massive military feat was coordinated closely with Israel every step of the way. Joining us now via Zoom with more is national security analyst and intelligence officer, major in the reserves, Dan Feferman. Good evening to you, Dan. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
So obviously we woke up this morning not only to alarms, but many of us to the news as to what transpired last night. For somebody that knows a lot about the Middle East, has traveled throughout the Middle East, speaks Arabic, the whole thing. Tell me how impactful something like this is and how historic. Is it the greatest thing that's ever happened, I guess, so to speak, to use these B-2 bombers and to do something this large?
I'd hesitate to use the word greatest whenever we have to use a military force in the Middle East, but I think it is a massively impactful moment. Perhaps it's going to go up there amongst a string of continuously impactful moments that we've had over the past few years in a positive direction. The Middle East, the broader Middle East, has experienced significant and positive changes, of course, starting with the Abraham Accords. And then we had the massive dip, the downfall of the October 7th attack, but with Hezbollah being on the ropes, with Assad falling, with Iran being embarrassed, and then the entrance of Trump and kind of a resurgence of the possibility of the Abraham Accords, things were starting to look bright. And now Israel did what the rest of the region really wishes it could and just doesn't know how. It can't pull off these kinds of actions. And with the United States coming in and cementing it, of course, as your analyst said, this is not an end to the nuclear program. It's certainly not an end, as Secretary of Defense Hegseth and Israeli leaders said, this is not an end to the Islamic regime. But this really is a big dent to their regional, to their nuclear ambitions. It also embarrasses them to a large extent. It shows them to be far less dominant than they always claim to be in the region. And right now they are on the ropes. And let's call it the moderate side. The Abraham Accords axis is on the ascendance.
And also, with that said, they're still promising to exact retaliation on, different assets, American assets. I mean, would they do something like that? And if they did, could it turn into an all-out war with American troops?
The Iranians really, and I don't blame them, of course. I mean, from their perspective, they're attacked. Their entire, 2 decades, 3 decades, and nearly $1 trillion of investment. Really, their entire national priority was just taken out in the blink of a week, and with the American entrance in the blink of an eye. They have to retaliate. They have to save face. They have to show that they did something. At the end of the day, though, the Iranians really have 2 choices here. One is they can put everything that they have against now the Americans and not just the Israelis, go for broke, so to speak, and then they will suffer a much heavier consequence on all of their proxies around the region. But really, they would be risking regime survival, because then the Americans would come in on regime targets, on infrastructure, on shipping, on oil, on a lot of elements that were kept off the table until now. The other thing that the Iranians, what I imagine they would do is maybe they'll launch a very small symbolic attack, but they're already hinting that they want to come to the table. They want to have talks with the Americans. And Foreign Minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, has already said as much, that he wants to come to Washington to meet with the White House. And so what I imagine the Iranians are going to be looking to do is to talk a very tough game. They're going to try to get the international community on their side. I see this already with some of their usual allies, the Russians and others, saying that the United States and Israel broke every single possible international treaty and norm, and Iran was at the negotiating table, and the U.S. burned the negotiating table. You see it also with all their paid influencers online. But what's going to happen is they're going to come back. They're going to try to, with their save face, but try to beg for some kind of ceasefire deal. And the question is will they capitulate to the Americans and get rid of their nuclear program?
All right, Dan, thank you very much. We'll see you back here again as more unfolds. We're going to take a short break. Don't go anywhere.